Hello, everybody. This is Joseph P. Farrell in our first News and Views from the Nefarium on Thursday, January 4th, 2013. Pardon me, Thursday, January 3rd, 2013. This is our first post-apocalypse news and views, our first news and views of the new year. We are, so to speak, beyond Thunderdome. Anyway, I have a very interesting article I want to talk about. And it's got kind of something to do with the announcement. And the announcement is, in case of those of you who don't have Facebook or don't track Facebook that closely, the new book, Covert Wars and Breakaway Civilizations, is out. There is what it looks like. You can see our good old friends here, Werner von Braun and his fellow Nazis, and over here, oops, Hermann Oberth and some of the other good Nazis at NASA, our good friend Juan Perón, a Roman Catholic bishop, actually a cardinal, I'm not going to tell you who he is, our good friend the Bell, and so on and so forth. Anyway, good cover art by Terry Lamb. I just got this in the mail, folks, this week. So that means that it will be a couple of months, not months, it'll be a couple more weeks before the book actually works its way through the distributor and on into Amazon and Barnes & Noble and other bookstores. But I want to remind everybody, this book, and pardon me, I do have a bad sinus today, but I do want to remind everybody that this book is the second book in a little sub-series of books that began with saucers, swastikas, and psyops. Those of you who've read lots of my books know that each book is kind of a part of a mini-series, which is a part of a little bigger series, which is part of the whole series of books. So this is part of a little sub-series dealing with the breakaway civilization. I am planning very deliberately, when I first wrote Saucers, Swastikas, and Psyops, that there would be possibly a fourth book, but at least I know of a third book, which I will be writing sometime, I hope this year. I've already begun research for that. So in any case, I continue my reading and I continue my little writing vacation. I'm trying to get some stuff caught up on the website. So that's where we're at. Now, speaking of covert wars and breakaway civilizations, I ran into a really interesting article here, and it is on the Huffington Post. I don't know if you can see that. There you are. Yeah, it's on the Huffington Post, and it's entitled Solar Warden, the Secret Space Program. Now, this is really interesting to me because, first of all, even though the Huffington Post takes articles and posts articles from people that don't actually work for it, it is interesting that they allowed this one to get through, all right? Because it does contain some interesting information about the Gary McKinnon case, the fellow in the United Kingdom, a British subject, that the United States is trying to extradite to this country to stand trial for computer hacking. All right. Now, the reason I am going to read a large portion of this to you is because this little article, I don't know, there's no way in this case of tracking down the truthfulness or falsehood of many of this guy's statements, but I pass them along to you because they do tend to corroborate some of the conclusions that I suggested in this book about the culture and setup, so to speak, of this breakaway civilization. Right toward the end of the book, when I inject finally into the overall picture the whole subject of UFOs, I did it in such a way as to try to point out that this is a phenomenon that would have been of extreme concern to the then two superpowers during the Cold War. And as a result of that, not only would the United States response have been more or less international in nature, in other words, the structures that were created to deal with the Cold War by the American national security state, to use Richard Dolan's term, were the same structures that were used to deal with the UFO. All right. And I also, at the end of the book, say that as a consequence of some UFO activity, it is likely that there would have been an international establishment of some sort to deal with the potential threat that the UFO posed. Now, I say all that because this article on the Huffington Post, and I will link it, is very interesting and tends to confirm that view. And I want to read the main gist of this article to you because I can't improve upon what it's saying. Quote, about an hour ago, this is the author, I spoke to a NASA representative who confirmed this was their program. The program is called Solar Warden. This is the secret space program that allegedly Gary McKinnon tapped into, and that it was terminated by the president. He also informed me that it was not a joint program with the Department of Defense. The NASA representative informed me that you should be directed to the Johnson Space Center Freedom of Information Act manager. I have run your request through one of our space-related directorates, and I am waiting on one other division with the command to respond back to me. I will contact you once I have a response from the other division. Did NASA refer you to us? End quote. Now, this is a NASA representative writing to the author of this article. Now, the author continues. The program not only operates classified under the U.S. government, but also, here it comes, under the United Nations authority. So you might be wondering, how do I know this information? Well, there are a few people and many others that have tried hard to find out the truth and have succeeded by leaked information or simply asking questions and have government departments slip up and give away information freely, just like what happened when Darren Parks asked the Department of Defense. One notable contributor is Gary McKinnon. When Gary McKinnon hacked into U.S. Space Command computers several years ago and learned of the existence of non-terrestrial offers and fleet-to-fleet transfers and a secret program called Solar Warden, he was charged by the Bush Department of Justice with having committed the biggest military computer hack of all time and stood to face prison time of up to 70 years after the extradition from the United Kingdom. But trying to arrest McKinnon and try him in open court would involve his testifying to the above classified facts, and his attorney would be able to subpoena government officers to testify under oath about the Navy's space fleet. To date, the extradition of McKinnon to the United States has gone nowhere. McKinnon also found out about the ships or craft within Solar Warden. It is said that there are approximately 8 cigar-shaped motherships, each longer than 2 football fields end-to-end, and 43 small scout ships. The Solar Warden Space Fleet operates under the U.S. Naval Network and Space Operations Command. There are approximately 300 personnel involved at that facility, with the figure rising. Solar Warden is said to be made up from U.S. aerospace black projects contractors, but some contributors of parts and systems by Canada, the United Kingdom, Italy, Austria, Russia, and Australia. It is also said that the program is tested and operated from secret military bases such as Area 51 in Nevada in the USA. All right. Now, if true, and the reason I'm passing all of this along to you is I think this is kind of significant information in the light of what Richard Dolan has written about his ideas about the breakaway civilization, the national security state, and what I've written thus far in this little sub-series of books. First of all, you have the idea that there is some sort of UN connection, and this kind of reminds me of the X-Files episode where you saw the UN involved in suppression of UFO data, all right? And it reminds me also of some of the conclusions that I came to toward the end of this book, that the nuclear threat posed by the UFO is in fact significant enough it might have warranted some sort of international superstructure to deal with it. And we have pretty much that being said here. The other thing I want you to note is the connection to the U.S. Navy. That's a little detail that I find very, very intriguing, because if you go back and research remarks made by Admiral Bobby Inman, he kind of intimates that the Navy is where you really ought to be looking at for black projects involving U.S. military and anti-gravity and that sort of stuff. It's the Navy. And interestingly enough, Admiral Inman, besides having his connection to naval intelligence, has gone on to work for a California firm, a defense contracting firm, that, guess what, specializes in anti-gravity research, or so the rumors abound. So anyway, we are looking here at something very significant. And the final thing I want to point out is that this whole alleged space fleet is called Solar Warden. Now, why the implication that we have to watch or guard the sun? Well, bear that in mind as you're reading Covert Wars and Breakaway Civilizations, because one of the things in that book that I talk about is, given the culture of this breakaway civilization that I'm arguing for in that book, one of the things that they're interested in developing are technologies of emulation. In other words, technologies that act like or look like acts of God: earthquakes, tornadoes, weather, solar flares. All right. So this is very significant, I think, that the Huffington Post ran this. I'll link it in the article because I think this may be an interesting year to watch what's going on in space. Anyway, that's it for our first news and views from the Nefarium for 2013. I'm Joseph Farrell. God bless everybody, and I'll see you on the flip side.